Hello, product people. Welcome to the Product for Product podcast, hosted by Matt Green, data advocate and product manager, and Moshe product leader and author. Our goal is to serve the product community by helping you find products that can help make your work in product management easier. Thanks for joining us on another episode of the Product for Product podcast.
Welcome back. Today we're talking about the experimentation tool Google Optimize. We're excited to have Tracy Laranjo on the show to talk about how she's using it and her work as a CRO. Welcome to the show, Tracy.
Hi, Matt and Moshe. It's really awesome to be here.
Hi, Tracy.
Thanks so much for being here.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, tell us a bit about yourself, Tracy.
For sure. So I lead the conversion optimization program at InkBox Tattoos. On the side, I interview smart experimenters on Experiment Nation, the podcast. And I'm looking forward to seeing how many times I can say Google Optimize in the next half hour.
I'm sure to come up a few times.
Yeah. Wait, you intrigued me with the name of the company where you work. InkBox Tattoos?
Yeah, InkBox. So if you haven't heard of them, they're an e-com shop based in Canada. And you can buy a pre-designed semi-permanent tattoo, or you can design your own online. The tattoos take about 24 hours to develop. They last 1 to 2 weeks, and they look pretty realistic.
Cool.
Oh, yeah, that's very cool.
It's a fun job.
Nice. Yeah. So you are a CRO over there, and you're working with Google Optimize, and that's the product that we want to learn everything about. How long have you been using it for?
Yeah, I've been using it for about 2 years now.
I believe that they have a free tier and a pay tier, right?
Yes, they have Optimize, the free vanilla version, and then they also have the paid tier called Optimize 360. That one would run you in the tens of thousands of dollars per year. So I think a lot of people start off with free Google Optimize to just get their testing programs up and running.
Yeah, it seems to be quite popular. I did a survey on LinkedIn when we started this series, and more than 30% of the people said that they're using it. And some people also said they graduated from it to another product. So are you using the free one?
I am using the free one. I don't have any experience with any other similar tools in market. While I would love to graduate to a VWO or an Optimizely, I've only really worked on a pretty low maturity optimization program. So yeah, definitely working up to that point.
Yeah, but that also seems to be like a huge part of the market. Like more than 30% it's huge. So it's really interesting to see, what the capabilities are and etc. So tell us a bit about it. If you can describe it, what does it do, how it can help you in your work, etc.
So when I first tried Google Optimize about 2 years ago, I was totally convinced it was magic. What it could do. I was so junior at the time. I was like, wow, I can't believe it does this.
Yeah.
Pretty much it's a tool that allows you to run tests and personalized experiences on your website, all without actually modifying the code of your website. As we've kind of mentioned before, it's the most basic tool of its kind in the market, but it's free, which is great for budding testing programs. In terms of what it can do, you can run A/B tests, multivariate tests to learn what web page content resonates with your visitors with some statistical backing. And you can also create personalized experiences. So that would be for example, visitors with certain attributes. So for example, if you wanted to target first-time visitors with a special promotion on your website, you can set that up in Google Optimize as well.
I noticed it's part of the actual Google marketing platform. So it works alongside of the analytics, tag manager, data studio, and surveys. So it's kind of in the suite of tools on that platform. Are you using any of the other applications on that platform, or is it just Optimize by itself?
Yeah, I do use numerous. So for example, Google Analytics, I use very actively, and we also run Google Ads. So that's actually something that I really like about Google Optimize. It plays really well with Google Analytics and just the other tools in the Google marketing platform. But you're not really just limited to Google Analytics. You can, of course, run the data from Google Optimize to whatever analytics tool you use.
I love analytics, so I'm always looking for ways to get better with analytics. And I know the space with statistics using Bayesian frequentist methods, and there's just so much in this space that you can do with analytics. So it's cool that Google Analytics has a place, but that you can use other tools in your stack.
Yeah, I would even go as far as recommending that you don't actually use the analytics built into Google Optimize. I fully recommend porting over all of your experiment data into Google Analytics or a separate tool so you can get a little more granular.
Oh, very nice. So in your 2 years of using it, I'm curious, have you seen it grow along the way these past 2 years?
I'm not sure that I've necessarily seen the product change as much as I've seen my use of it change. My use of Google Optimize has really matured over the last 2 years. Yeah, the reasons for initially trying out Google Optimize were totally different between the two orgs that I've used it at. The first one, I used it at a very early stage startup. Disclaimer, if there are any developers listening to me right now or other fellow optimizers, I do not condone this behavior. I have moved on. So I started using Google Optimize as a bit of a survival tactic when development support wasn't available. If there was an instance where I had to wait 2 weeks to get a call to action button on a page, I would just go into Google Optimize and build it myself. Again, do as I say, not as I do. Always get help from a developer and do a proper QA. But yeah, I mean, quite simply, we didn't really have the conversion volume to support meaningful A/B tests. So I used it more as a personalization tool for different demographic groups. But it wasn't until joining InkBox that my use of it became a lot more strategic. We use Google Optimize to improve conversion rate and get better return on our ad spend. And it's allowed us to have a rapid testing program.
So tell us a bit about some of the use cases, some scenarios that you're using it for.
So one use case would be A/B testing one element of a page. So I like to do this when I'm testing out value prop messaging to see what resonates with visitors. There are other instances when I'll A/B test two entirely different landing pages to see which one's more effective at converting. So an example of this could be if you have a Facebook interest group, you can test a landing page that speaks to the Facebook audience's interests, or you can just send them right into a category search page with products that are already curated relevant to their interests. So two very different experiences that you can run as a redirect test in Google Optimize. And on the personalization front, all personalized page content by traffic source. So if we have a special offer for a specific Facebook ad campaign, I will use Google Optimize to make sure that visitors with a specific UTM parameter see that special promotion and the others do not.
So how do you do stuff like that in Google Optimize? Can you explain a bit? Because you also mentioned it's without developer help. So how do you do these things?
The process of making tests and personalizations is relatively similar. There are differences among each because obviously you're looking at different things, but pretty much you open Google Optimize, you create what's called, I think they're still called experiences. Maybe they were never called experiences. I don't know. I'm calling it an experience. You create an experience and you will select if you want to run an A/B test, multivariate test, just any different kind of test from the list that it provides you, or a personalization. You select that and then you're brought into kind of like it's its own window with different steps in the experiment setup. So in the first piece of the page, you'll see an editor if you're running an A/B test or personalization, where you actually open up this editor and you can make small aesthetic and copy updates without code, or you can inject or modify HTML, CSS, and JavaScript on your web page without actually changing the code of the web page. Of course, you want to do this with a developer. Kids don't do this at home. There you go.
Disclaimer.
But yeah, so you visually set up the thing that you'd like to test or change. And then afterwards, you would go about selecting which page is going to be visible, or on which page the experiment will actually be visible. And after that point, you're setting up your audience targeting. So you're essentially telling Google Optimize, look for this specific parameter in someone's URL when they come to this page. Or if this person is from this country and they hit this page, show them what I just built in the editor. And then nice. So you can see what your visitors are going to be seeing, but you have to think really carefully about all the different edge cases where people can land on this experience and you maybe don't want them to. So it does take a lot of thought in setting up your experiment. But you can do other things like choosing how much of your traffic you actually want to be entered into the test, what you want the split to be. So you don't have to necessarily do a 50-50 A/B test. And you can link it up to Google Analytics. You can do all this fun stuff with it.
It sounds like it's a tool that you're able to get up and running fairly quickly.
Yeah. The first time that I implemented it, I was able to do it 100% myself within a day. Like my first test was up and running in a day.
That's cool. And I think that maybe that's why it is such a good entry to the space, because it is easy to get up and running. Everyone is familiar with Google in some aspects. So nice way to get in the door when it comes to experimentation.
Definitely.
Right. But there's still like probably a very minimal script or something that needs to be included in the application. So you could actually integrate the two systems and they start talking with each other. I would assume, right?
Yeah, there are various methods of implementation. Mm-hmm. If you work with a website builder like Webflow, it's the easiest implementation because some of these builders have direct integrations with Google Optimize. This is how I installed Google Optimize the first time. Otherwise, you can implement Optimize on your site by, like you said, installing a snippet of code. There are a few ways that you can do it, and it's very easy to find the documentation online. I wouldn't recommend any specific way for just anyone, because it really depends on your analytics setup, if site speed is a concern of yours. But yeah, there are plenty of different ways to implement, and Google does have great documentation on it.
But you make a good point. You need to be strategic about it. You need to have your strategy in place, because you could be serving pages to people that you don't want to see certain material, or you don't want to drive them in a direction where they're turned away from your application or your page.
Yeah. And I think it's easy to look at a tool like Optimize and see it as like this big magic revenue making machine. But at the end of the day, what you're going to get out of the tool is what you put into it. It will not fix poor test design. It will not fix like knowledge gaps in testing fundamentals. And it's not a substitute for developer support. So.
And also, I think one of the things that came up with Romil on the discussion with him was about insights and sharing them across the company. Mm-hmm. Because once you get some results, it's one thing about you knowing about them, and another thing about everyone in the company knows about them, because sometimes people might duplicate tests or not even know that someone already tested something in the past, or forget even that those tests happened.
Yeah, Romil and I have definitely the same perspective on documentation. With every test that we run, I will write up a deck with all of the results, the hypotheses, the takeaways, the learnings, just everything, because well, it's partially selfish, because if I don't do it, I'm going to forget what we learned. So it really forces me to actually go in there and really look at the results and question what I'm seeing and think critically about it. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to get a team stoked about results sometimes, because I'll post a deck and like, it'll be crickets, like no Slack reacts. I'm like, guys, come on, show me some love. But you know, what can you do?
Yeah. Yeah. We talked about that. If an application did have a repository of these tests, so you can go back a year from now and say, oh, this test may not have presented results at the time, but there's something that we missed, or somebody new to the team comes in and wants to dig up that information. So if it doesn't already do that, I think that might be a good opportunity for maybe some of these tools to have that.
Yeah, 100%. And, you can test something out and maybe you did get the problem right, but the actual solution wasn't the right solution. If you don't, test that and then reflect on it, you're actually not going to know what that next iteration looks like. And you're just going to kind of give up.
Yep. You're going to miss that opportunity. An interesting space for sure.
And so most of the tests that you're referring to are mostly on the marketing side of things, or are there also like on the application side? So when someone, you said that they have the ability to actually design their own tattoo, and so I assume there is some type of an application they can log in and maybe upload their image or something like that. Is there any testing that you also do within the application?
So Google Optimize is definitely not the recommended tool for like web apps. It doesn't have like app support either, that I know of. I don't really use Google Optimize for product and application related testing. That was a challenge that I came up against in my last role. I was on a product team working on a single page web app, and just Google Optimize was not feasible for that. But these days, I don't really optimize on the product side. I optimize primarily landing pages and working to start testing on product pages. Cart and checkout are definitely ripe for opportunity. But it's mostly marketing side at the moment.
Right. And that's also the challenge I found in the past with Google Analytics, that it's more built, especially the free tier, that it's more built toward marketing websites and being able to know how people got to your site and what they're doing on the site, if they convert. But once it becomes like the actual product, digital product that you wanted to log into or use, it's not that strong, Google Analytics. But I did see recently a presentation by someone that showed me also Tag Manager. And this is also like the one that you do have to pay for the Google Analytics, and it has much more powers than what I saw before. So maybe there is something there also for the more pay tier with the Google Optimize. There might be.
Yeah, you can definitely do quite a bit in Google Optimize if you have a developer on hand and if you understand a lot of back-end things like like just the cookies that go on your site. You really have to have an understanding about your analytics setup to do some pretty advanced stuff. You could apply tests to multiple pages and kind of create a sequence of pages as a test. But I would definitely trust one of the, I guess, more, what's the word I'm looking for? The not free solutions out there, or the non-Google solutions out there. I would trust those to do more complex experimentation.
You mentioned that your main product that you're using is Product Optimize. Google Optimize, but you probably talk also with other CROs. Do you know why they usually move to other systems?
Yeah, I think the big thing is that Google Optimize really caps you in how many experiments you can actually run at a time. So on the free tier, it is a max of 5 tests and 10 personalizations that you can run at any given time. And you only have a maximum of 3 experiment objectives on the free version. There are a whole lot of limitations to Google Optimize. For example, analytics are session-based. Some people don't care about that. Personally, I like to see user-based analytics as well. So with tools like VWO, I don't know if this is already an existing feature or something that they're planning on rolling out, but you could do bandit testing for short-term campaigns. Google Optimize doesn't really support bandit testing.
Could you explain what that is?
Yeah, for sure. So with bandit testing, there is some kind of bias inherent in it, but with bandit testing, the winning variant will receive more traffic to kind of maximize on the results that are coming in. So if you have a variant that's proving to be an early winner, that one will get more traffic versus
choose it.
Yeah.
They kind of choose it automatically because it gets more.
Yeah. So
okay,
you can't do that with Optimize. With VWO, you either can or will be able to. I can't quite remember.
Our next guest is going to be talking to us about VWO, so we can ask him about that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
But it does raise the question that there might be a bias over there, because maybe if you let it run for a bit longer, maybe the other one will be better, or maybe it's better because you give it more traffic. So it's an interesting question.
Yeah. Well, when you're working with such a short amount of time for, say, like Black Friday, for example, you don't want to run necessarily an A/B test on that, because first of all, the intent is just so skewed with all the promotions that you've got going on. And also, it's such a short period of time. You're not necessarily going to get the most, I guess, significant data, because it's only going to be like maybe one business cycle worth of data. Whereas the bandit testing will kind of optimize for that short period of time and just really boost that version that's looking the most promising.
And is that using the statistics to do that? Doing my research on it, it looks like it exclusively uses the Bayesian method.
Yeah, that's a good question. For bandit testing specifically, I can't really speak to that, but Google Optimize does use Bayesian statistics.
Okay.
Yeah, I do look at other tools. So if I'm one of like a search platform tool that I see in use with A/B tests, they use a frequentist analysis or statistics. But yeah, I definitely kind of lean toward the easy to understandness of Bayesian statistics that you have with Google Optimize. And it's a lot more, I don't know, it's more relevant to the questions that you're actually trying to solve most of the time.
Probability stuff. Yeah. It definitely seems like the more popular approach. I've used it in the past for other things, and it definitely seems to be the more approachable statistics, I suppose. Speaking about A/B Tasty, I think they use both of them, so it gives you the option of using one or the other one. So
that's kind of nice. I actually really like that. I believe VWO is Bayesian, but I mean, there are times when I want to know with like without any doubt whatsoever that a variant is winning 100% for sure. If that's the case, I will probably go a frequentist direction. But if I'm just looking at kind of like the overall confidence of the results and like the probability and the impact that we expect to see long term, I would probably go Bayesian. I'm a little less risk averse than I used to be in the past when I was a frequentist.
Yeah. Well, excellent. And this kind of leads into another questions we like to ask about 3 best features that you like about Google Optimize, and maybe the 3 features that you might want to see added. I think we mentioned some of the features we might want to add. Maybe list some of the things you really do enjoy about it.
Well, I love that it's free. I don't know if that counts.
It does.
I think
absolutely.
It does.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's number one for sure. I think also just it plays really well with Google Analytics and the rest of the Google suite as a whole. That's a pretty big plus. And I would say that the audience targeting can manage some pretty sophisticated stuff if you know how to pull it off. So that is definitely worthy of practicing. But in terms of things that I would like to see, I mean, I am on the free tier, so there's no benefit to Google for actually doing this.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to run more than 5 tests at a time, more than 10 personalizations at a time.
Free. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to be able to actually pull in Google Analytics custom goals into Google Optimize. Currently, like I am unable to do so on the free tier. If there's a workaround to it, someone reach out to me, let me know. I would love for analytics to be user-based. And as a bonus, there is no image uploader in Google Optimize. So you actually have to host the images yourself if you want to upload any to the editor.
So when you host it yourself, you mean on a Google Drive or somewhere else?
I don't know if hosting on a Google Drive is a best practice. I'm sure it would work as a survival tactic. But yeah, usually when I've done this in past, I would host it in the CMS or website builder, such as like a Webflow or a WordPress, and then just link to that image.
Mm-hmm.
We usually ask questions about the company behind the product, but I think
we all know Google, right?
yeah. I might have to leave those out. I don't know how customer support and all that stuff is working for you, but or whether they obsess over you. They probably do obsess over you. You just don't really know it.
Never in my lifetime will Google obsess about me, and I'm okay with
that. They obsess over your data, and they probably have. They're probably A/B testing you on all the stuff you're doing. So
probably,
yeah.
But the nice thing is that I think they develop it for their own internal, product, and then it's been a while that they released it. It's not a new product. I remember that when I was looking at A/B testing. Eventually I chose Optimizely. Google, I think it was called something else back then because they're keeping changing names all the time.
Yep.
But they already had the product back then, and I'm talking around 8 years ago, maybe more. So yeah, so I think that they're developing it for their own stuff, and I assume they're using it as well, and they're not using third-party products. But you can never know, because sometimes they just buy companies and that's it.
Yeah.
On the other end, I never try to connect with their support for any of their, enterprise or business products. So I don't know if you're using a free tier for Google Analytics or Google Optimize or any of the other products, if there is actually someone that you can connect and ask them questions. But probably not.
Yeah, you can try to find your answer in the help community. If you're a 360 or paid customer, you would get some email support.
I'm sure.
I believe if you run Google Ads, you can also get some email support, which is nice. But yeah, if you're free, good luck.
Yeah.
Just Google it. Just Google it.
Yeah.
So
just Google it. Exactly. But there are so many people using it that I'm sure there is a big community of people you can ask and get support from.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm working on a project right now, and I actually find some of the Google documentation to be really helpful. They do have a lot of stuff out there on different things you're working on, just their internal documentation around statistics and machine learning and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's a lot of good stuff out there.
Cool.
And I know you are a podcaster. Would you mind filling us in on what you're working on with the podcast?
Of course. So I host the English segment of interviews with experimenters on Experiment Nation, the podcast. We're a group of experimenters, optimizers, product managers, growth marketers, UX researchers, nerds, and we talk shop on air. I'll talk to some really cool people from like Shopify, Specsavers, and just really ask them the questions that I have in my day-to-day and the questions that I wish other people were asking for me when I was first starting out in this work.
Mm-hmm. So that can be another great resource for anyone interested in A/B testing. Go and listen to that. We will include information about this in the description of the show.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Experimentation's a really great site. It's great to see a community coming together to help each other and really grow the space and really grow the knowledge. It's always great to see that. So being introduced to Ramil and having him on the show and found it really helpful as we've been learning here.
Yeah, I learned a lot since then, and I definitely think that there is so much I need to learn about this area of product. And I also owe an apology to Ramil and to the entire Experiment Nation, because I think I called it Experimentation Nation on that episode, and I don't know why. It just rhymed much better in my head. But it's Experiment Nation. So don't look for Experimentation Nation. It doesn't exist.
I do it all the time. I host the podcast. I do it
rolls
all
off the tongue.
It does roll off your tongue much nicer, I think, but maybe it's just me, or like you're saying, it's not just me, it's other people too.
Definitely.
Well, just Google it. I'm sure you'll come across it either way. So yeah. Is there anywhere else people can best reach you if they have any more questions?
Yeah, you can reach me on LinkedIn. My name is Tracy Laranjo. Search up Tracy InkBox. You'll probably find me. You can find me hanging out in the Experiment Nation Slack channel. And yeah, you can catch me on the podcast. Hope to have some more new listeners.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Tracy, for joining the show. And we really do appreciate it. And we look forward to learning more about this space and checking out your podcast. Thanks again.
Yes. Thank you so much, Tracy.
Thank you so much, Matt and Moshe. This is a great time.
Thank you.
Take care.